Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. My name is Ron Luce. I am joined by myself, and I. A little solo venture here this evening. I feel like I kind of needed this solo venture, so I hope everybody bears with me. So we need to de-stress about Chicago sports in general. And sometimes talking about the Cubs gets that done. I hope everybody's doing well that's joining us, whether you're joining us live over on the On Tap Sports at YouTube or over on Facebook or over on X, or you are listening to this in podcast form, wherever you catch your favorite podcast. First off, thank you as always for tuning in and welcome. This is going to be hopefully a fun show. We're going to talk about a lot of different things. Obviously, the San Diego Padres series is going to take precedence, and we'll get into that and kind of what that means for the upcoming future. If you haven't already, I highly encourage all of you to check out Tuesday's show. Joey, Tyler, and Nick did a fantastic job. A lot of good conversations occurring regarding, do the Cubs need to make a move given the Justin Steele injury? Obviously something that Rich and I also touched on Sunday night's show. And just a great conversation as always amongst those three. So be sure to tune into that if you haven't already. Highly encourage it. It was a great show. I was able to catch a large majority of it, despite not being able to join the boys on the microphones. Jay's coming in with the hard-hitting questions already. Jay, I'm going to hold that one, but we're going to share it just so everybody knows why we're holding this one. Is the wind blowing out all weekend at Wrigley? We're going to talk about that a little bit later. It might be at least one day. I don't know if it's going to be the whole weekend. And we'll explain that why, but at least Friday it's looking that way, which will be a lot of fun. And we'll certainly talk about that here in a little bit. Go Cubs, go! Go Cubs, go! Indeed, and it is still go Cubs, go. And what I mean by that, for people that are probably like, well, yeah, no shit, Dick Tracy, of course it's go Cubs, go. I mean the sense of this is the first 3-game series that the Cubs have dropped this season, and that feels really, really good when it's all said and done, because it wasn't to a bad team. Yes, did they shoot themselves in the foot maybe a little bit? Yeah, maybe a little bit. And we're going to touch on that as well. But I think when you look at it and you take a step back and you kind of take the 50,000-foot view of what occurred over the last handful of days in San Diego, you still got to be encouraged. That, like, this team's grinding. And they're doing everything they can right now, at least in terms of the offense, to somewhat keep themselves in games. And again, this is their first 3-game series loss of the season, because Tokyo was a 2-game set. Sure, that was a series loss. You had a 4-game set against the Diamondbacks, who are going to be very relevant, especially toward the end of this show, because they are the upcoming opponent this weekend at Wrigley Field. We'll touch on that in greater detail a little bit later. You split with them in 4, and then you won 4 straight series. The most recent one being against the Los Angeles Dodgers in LA. And as Rich and I touched on Sunday night's show, I think a lot of people were happy about that, because the general, I think, feeling amongst most Cubs fans, whether they said it or not, was if the Cubs can come out of this West Coast swing, these 6 games, 3-3, everybody feels really good about that. And I think a lot of people thought two of the 3 wins would come in the San Diego series, not in the Dodgers series, where in reality it ended up being flip-flopped, which I think at the end of the day everybody's comfortable with. Could you sit here and say, yeah, the Cubs in theory could have swept the 3-game series against San Diego, or at least taken 2 out of 3? But when it's all said and done, there's still a lot of encouragement about, wow, they still went 3-3 on probably the hardest 6-game stretch they're going to have all season. Let's call it what it is. You played 2 of the best teams in baseball, certainly the 2 best teams in the NL West, and you came away 500 against them. And on top of that, every other team they've played so far this season has winning records against pretty much the rest of the league, outside of maybe the A's, and even the A's are starting to find balance of water. Scott called it out, I believe, on our last show. They're getting things done, man. It's encouraging, but there are still things we need to talk about, and we're going to get into some of those here now. And let's just start where it is. Joey came up with this in the preseason show. I think it's so much fun that we've kind of run with it over the course of the beginning of the season so far. And it's Pete Crow Airlines, because that guy can fly. And that needs to be the tagline. If it's not already, Joey, that's how he originally said it. I think it's perfect. And it wasn't even so much Pete Crow Armstrong's speed this weekend. Obviously, he had a couple double, or I believe it was 3 doubles in this past series. But the long ball for Pete, he's starting to find his groove a little bit. And again, this is not like Pete Crow Armstrong is dominating the Colorado Rockies, or he's dominating the Chicago White Sox, or he's dominating the Miami Marlins, or one of these lower level teams. He's doing it again. He had a great series in LA, had a great series in San Diego. Now for him, it's about taking that momentum and carrying it further into this upcoming homestand. The Cubs have an incredible opportunity coming up, albeit against a lot of hard teams, a lot of difficult teams that they're going to play. But a stretch that I don't recall in recent memory that the Cubs have ever had like this in April, in the sense of you play 3 weekend games this coming weekend against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Then you have an off day on Monday. Then you stay in Chicago for 2 games against Los Angeles Dodgers at Wrigley. Then you're off Thursday, still staying in Chicago. And then you have a 3-game set with the Phillies before you finally go on the road at the end of this month. I don't recall them ever having a stretch like that in April, where you play, quick math, 8 games over 10 days. We'll call it 11 days because this Thursday, where we're recording the show right now, is an off day. 8 games in 11 days and you don't have to leave Chicago? That's pretty fantastic, because they got back last night. They flew back. They were off today in the city, albeit a kind of a shitty day to come back. Kind of rained a little bit. Neither here nor there. That's the type of stretch you can really take advantage of if you're Pete Crow Armstrong, where you keep that momentum riding that you gained on the West Coast and continue to be this player that you are becoming. Because here's the thing. I think so many people have obviously focused on how good Kyle Tucker has been to start the season. And he's been great. He's already a full WAR player, according to Fangraphs, 0.9 WAR, according to Baseball Reference. So depending who you go by, nonetheless, he's effectively a full win player already, is Kyle Tucker. Believe it or not, Carson Kelly's actually the top player on the Cubs in terms of WAR. He's technically a 1.2 WAR already, which is crazy because he's only played 10 games. Absolutely bonkers when you really think about it. But Pete Crow Armstrong is already, according to Fangraphs, a 1.1 WAR player. That's insane, especially when you consider the fact that he had the cold start with the bat, even though he's impactful when he's on the base paths, no matter how he gets out there. And then now the power's starting to come a little bit. The slug, right? We saw 3 doubles, 3 homers on this road trip. The defense is obviously there with a guy like PCA. This is the type of season I think the Cubs were hoping he was going to. And if he keeps this up, he's going to be a 6.5 win player, which is absurd when you think about it. And yes, it's still early. And yes, we're only, 21 games into this thing. But he's doing it, as Christopher Cole says here, against the toughest part of this team's schedule this year. April is, this Cubs schedule is front-loaded. If they are above 500 at the end of April, which all things considered, it looks like a good possibility right now at 12-9. Who's to say this team can't keep it going? And you're going to face largely inferior competition for most of the rest of the season because you get your own division, despite hot starts from teams like the Cardinals and whatever. Yeah, you're going to see, tough pitching matchups, obviously, against the Pirates. Yeah, you're going to still see good baseball teams. Like, anybody can beat you on any given day. That's just baseball at its highest level. But you aren't going to see the Dodgers and the Padres twice in the same month anymore. You're not going to see the Phillies on the back end having just faced the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers at home. I mean, think about that NL West right now. You've got realistically 4 teams that could all be in the postseason, and your 5th team in that division is probably going to have the number 1 overall pick. Think about that. That's a crazy division right now out west in the NL West. And the Cubs have seen the NL West all month. You get that out of the way now, and you got a guy like PCA playing some of his best baseball. That's going to go far. Having 3 players already on the roster with a win or better in terms of WAR is pretty spectacular. And PCA being one of them, I think, is even a bigger key because of what it means. And I think it's kind of funny, the timing of PCA kind of turning it on, at least in terms of his power and what we've seen so far here in 2025. Obviously, it's still incredibly early. He's doing it on the heels of a $75 million contract offer that he reportedly turned down from the Cubs. I wonder if there was a little bit of that went, you really think I'm only worth $75 million? Watch this. I'm going to make sure my price tag goes up. And again, maybe it's coincidence. Maybe it's, maybe there was some tinfoil hat theory that Jed Hoyer had of like, let's just put this in front of him and see what happens. But realistically, the timing of it is incredible, and PCA is really starting to turn it on. And to me, that was a huge takeaway of this series, despite what the loss was. Now, the bullpen. The bullpen is obviously going to continue to be a storyline all season long, right? Because we're seeing games be blown, because we're seeing already kind of a shuffling of the deck in terms of the personnel that are being used out of the bullpen for a variety of reasons, right? Obviously, injury is a big part of that. Eli Morgan's already hurt. You've got some other names that are already dinged up and banged up. Nate Pearson has already been demoted to Iowa. So there's already been the shuffling occurring in this bullpen. And you look at Monday's game and you go, they probably should have won that had the bullpen not kind of fallen apart late. And then you turn around and you say, well, you could have made the same argument about Wednesday's game, right? And I don't think so much it was the first guy that pitched, and I want to save that for a hot second. Luke Little struggled, right? 4 walks. He was wild. He was all over the place. Couldn't find the strike zone. His off-speed stuff was what he was throwing for strikes because he just couldn't locate the fastball. That's tough, right? You walk 4, you walk the bases loaded, you walk in a run. He doesn't have to give up a hit to let that run score. And unfortunately, it felt like that was kind of what took the wind out of the Cubs' sails, right? They were down 3-2. You thought maybe they had a chance. And the Padres have that big inning, even though it was only 1 run, but just from a duration in terms of how long they were out there, how many players came to the plate, that's a deflating half inning for the Cubs. And you could say shoulda, coulda, woulda, but the bullpen has been frustrating already. We all know Porter Hodge is a dude. Ryan Presley, I think, is going to be fine. Truly. I know a lot of people are still probably concerned about him, but I think largely he's going to be okay. It's everybody else that they got to figure out now, right? You've got your 8-9 guys, which is great. It's a great problem to have solved, but like, how the hell are you going to get from your starter to those 8-9 guys, especially if you have a lead? Or if a game is, a 4, 5, 6 run difference and you don't want to pitch your high leverage guys, who do you trust enough to come in and get you those outs? And right now, Daniel Palencia might be one of those guys. Pitched 1 2/3. Sure, he gave up the run, and that was tough, and you hate to see it. But from a guys they can trust, when you got a guy like him that can throw 100, that's certainly something that I think we all want to see, right? You want to see that type of guy come out of the bullpen and be able to be effective and have that kind of effect on the outcome of a game. And I think it was a lot. I think it was a lot of credit to Daniel Palencia for how he pitched. Yes, again, he gave up a run. So be it. He was good. And they're going to need that guy. Especially when you got Nate Pearson, who hasn't, has a really tough start to the year. Morgan's already hurt. You're already shuffling the deck. We're going to start to see the depth of this team be tested. And I mean that in the sense of, I think there's a good chance we see Jordan Wicks soon at the big league level. I think Javier Assad's going to be back soon. He had a really good rehab start in AAA. I believe it was 3 1/3. He gave up a run. I think he only walked 1. He gave up a couple of hits, and he struck out, I think it was 4. Really good outing from Javier Assad. And as easy as it is for everybody to then point to what Cade Horton did the other day, and you go, I believe it was a full 5. and strike out 6. And yeah, you walked a couple and you gave up 1 run on a home run. It was a solo shot. That was the only damage against him. Everybody's going to go, well, I don't have Cade Horton up yet because you don't want to rush the kid, right? Jordan Wicks has been in the system for years. Javier Assad's been in the system for years. Those guys also have big league pitching experience already. Throwing Cade Horton in the fire in April is probably not the move. So, again, I'm with everybody. I'm excited about watching what Cade Horton's doing. I hope he stays healthy. That's the biggest key for him right now, is just to stay on the diamond. And if he can stay on the diamond, it's going to be all good and dandy. Oh, and here we go. This is perfect. Look at that. I didn't even know it, but we already saw it. Jordan Wicks was just called up within an hour or so. So there you go. Jordan Wicks is on the big league roster, and not very surprised. And I think Jordan Wicks is coming out of the bullpen. While we're on the topic of the bullpen, this is perfect. I think Javier Assad's going to step back in as a starter once he's ready, like once he's truly fully ready. And I don't think he's there yet. I don't think we're going to see Javier Assad start games for the Cubs until May. And that's okay. I think Colin Ray is going to be just fine. Colin Ray is starting Friday's game. But don't be surprised if Jordan Wicks becomes the long guy, because he had a 3-inning save for the Iowa Cubs, and he's continually been pulled out of the starting rotation in Iowa. I think there's a lot of conviction from the Cubs front office that he is able to be a bullpen guy. And that's huge for the Cubs because aside from Caleb Thielbar, who got a really big save on Tuesday in that win against the Padres, they don't have a lefty. So having Jordan Wicks, who can come out, not only give you a lefty, but also give you multiple innings as a lefty, I think that could be a really big weapon, especially right now for the Cubs with everything going on with the Steele injury and the, again, kind of the shuffling of the deck when it's all said and done with the bullpen. Darren with a good comment here that I completely agree with. He says, I think Cade needs to cut down on the walks before he's called up. I totally agree. I think he had 3 walks in that 5-inning stretch, but he struck out 6, which is cool. But again, sometimes with those guys that are really nasty, you're going to have that early on. And again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but right, it's tough when you're Cade Horton and you lose a whole year of development a season ago because of that injury. He made 4 starts, 5 starts. That's going to be, that's going to be tough to overcome. So hopefully, again, I think if we see Cade Horton at the major league level this year, it's out of the bullpen, which is certainly fine. But overall, I think the best case scenario for him is to pitch in Iowa this year and be in the mix for the rotation than maybe next year when it's all said and done. Christopher Cole says here, Palencia made 1 mistake to a great hitter. 100%. I think Daniel Palencia was fantastic. And that's big. They need these guys that come up from Iowa. They need to find somebody they can trust in the 7th inning. That's really what it comes down to. Plain and freaking simple. They need that guy that can come up and be reliable. Because we know Porter Hodge is reliable. We think Ryan Presley's reliable. Now you need that guy that can get you from your 6-inning starter to the rest of your bullpen. And is it Daniel Palencia? It'd be great if it is. Is it somebody else? That's fine too. I don't care who it is, but they need to find that guy. And I think everything that Daniel Palencia did was still certainly encouraging. So a lot to be, again, it is what it is, right? But I think overall, hard not to be at least moderately optimistic about potentially what's to come. I do want to talk about this, though. You hear me sniffling on this podcast right now. It's allergy season, right? I'm 100% convinced the Cubs are allergic to bases loaded with no outs when it's all said and done. It really sucks when you load the bases with no outs. And yes, Kyle Tucker gets a run in with a sacrifice fly, but because it's to left field, you can't advance the runner from second to third. So you only have 1 guy in scoring position instead of 2. And then on top of that, Seiya Suzuki grounds into a double play. Didn't really look like himself, in terms of his follow through. Sam Olber, friend of the program over at Locked On Cubs, made a great point that looks like he's kind of half swinging and wondering if that's still related to that wrist that has kept him out of the lineup for, the recent stretch of games. Yeah, they need to be able to. It's great that this Cubs team can hit with 2 outs because they've done that a lot. And it's been cool. Don't get me wrong. I love watching this team hit with 2 outs because they're really good at it. But you also got to be able to hit with no outs, especially when you have bases loaded. Being allergic to that right now this early in the season, can it come back and bite you? Sure. Will it? We'll find out. But as it stands, I've got some Zyrtec for the Cubbies if they need it, because I think there's some allergies to bases loaded. That's more just something I wanted to call out, not necessarily something we're going to dive into too deep here. When it's all said and done regarding the San Diego series. Now, before we even remotely talk about what's to come, because obviously there are some notable things here that are on the horizon. I do want to get to our great comment section here as always. Darren says, like to see Nico lead off. Hap hit second, Tucker hit third. He believes it is the best chance for Tucker's first inning hits to drive in early runs. I think that's worth a chance. I also think PCA potentially hitting a little higher in the lineup. And by a little higher, I mean like maybe 6 or 5, maybe probably never 5, but maybe 6 instead of 7. I don't hate the idea of Nico leading off though. I also don't hate the idea of Hap hitting second. That would effectively bump Suzuki down to 4th, which I don't hate either. Maybe that's better for Dansby. I don't know. I don't know how that looks, but certainly interesting. And I agree, right? Better chance for Tucker's first hitting hits to drive in early runs. You think back to the 80s when, Bob Denier got on and he singles and steals second, and Rhino drives him in with a deep single, and Cubs are up 1-0 early. That I think would be very impactful. You can get a guy like that. You get a Nico on, you get a Hap on, guys that are both good at getting on base in different ways. For a guy like Kyle Tucker, who obviously can make a huge impact with the bat. I agree. I think that's a good option. And again, a big shout out to Mr. Sonny Verma for the the quick update. Yes, the report is Jordan Wicks is up. Luke Little was demoted to Iowa. So not a lot of surprise there. I'm actually surprised that was announced tonight. My joke was going to be that I had teed up that was going to be an announcement tomorrow when people were listening to this podcast to see if I was going to be right or not. We're right, just a little early. And it was all good. And yes, the daily double, as Darren says here in the comments. I do want to bring to light this comment here from Hank, because we're going to get into a little nostalgia. It's an off day. It's okay. We're going to get into some nostalgia. He says today is the 10th anniversary of Chris Bryant's debut with the Chicago Cubs. He says, I feel for the guy. He cannot catch a break. I completely agree. So for starters, if anybody doesn't keep up with former Cubs, which I think most of the fan base does largely, KB's back on the IL. He has like a degenerative disease in his back. I believe it's like a lower lumbar degenerate. Like it sounds borderline career ending. Truly, it's as sad as that is. It is true. Like this dude just could not catch a break. It feels like Riz was the same way too. The back and the concussions in New York were the two things that really like kind of kept him from being himself. And obviously Javi has struggled, but Javi's struggles I think are largely non-injury related, which we don't want guys getting hurt. If you struggle and you got your bag, good for you, Javi. If you're going to rob somebody, rob the Detroit Tigers. I don't really care, but I still remember Chris Bryant's debut very vividly, and it was cool. I caught they had the highlights of that game, and KB struck out 3 times, and the Cubs lost that game to a navy blue and white San Diego Padres team, not even the current color scheme that they kind of returned to with the old brown and yellow like they used to wear in the 80s. Yeah, I still recall that Alex Pratt on X, I think a lot of people follow him in the world of Cubs, said that he like skipped class that day to watch KB's debut. And I still remember before the 2013 draft praying that the Astros took Mark Appel at number 1. I was like, please, for the love of all things good, just take the pitcher and let KB Chris Bryant kid, you know how you refer to the prospects before you really know who they are. Please, I was like, let him fall to the Cubs. And I still remember having conversations with my dad, and he's like, who do you want the Cubs to take? He's like, I read a lot that like John Gray is the guy that they're going to take. And I'm like, no, go get the kid that's led the nation in homers in college. Like, that's who I want. And it worked out. I mean, a rookie of the year in 2015, obviously on this 10th anniversary of his call up, and obviously had a great season for a a Cubs team that was far better than people were expecting in 2015. Obviously the MVP year in 2016, with the, coupled with the World Series, a lot of other really good years that I think unfortunately just get forgotten about because either he was a little dinged up or the Cubs didn't, obviously win anything. And in hindsight, people are like, well, KB only really had the 2 good years. It's like, that's not entirely true. If you go back and you look at his numbers, he had a lot of really good seasons. He just had a few seasons where he really couldn't catch the break with injuries. Yeah, it's funny because I still remember Anthony Rizzo's debut and what that meant to the Cubs and kind of this like breath of fresh air. He was the first prospect on the scene that was supposed to be a part of the future. And obviously the history that he had with the front office from their days in Boston, and then Jed getting him when he was out in San Diego, and then them bringing him over to Chicago. And I remember that. And I remember the hype around, Javier Baez's call up and Jorge Soler's call up and Junior Lake's call up even then, and then way back when, Starlin Castro. I feel like there was no call up more anticipated more than Chris Bryant's in 2015. Especially because he had that incredible spring training. What was it? 9 home runs, I believe was the number. And then doubled down and they're like, he's not going to make the team. And everybody's like, roster manipulation rules. And then they were like, all right, we're calling him up on, he's going to debut on April 17th. And yeah, man, it sucks. You feel for the guy, and I think that's what makes the mural in Wrigleyville of KB, I think, even more fun, because to me, it immortalizes a player who, unless you were a true diehard Cubs fan or just a sicko about baseball, he's largely going to be forgotten about in terms of the history, right? Because people will be like, oh, remember when Chris Bryant won an NL MVP and then did really not much else the rest of his career? But like the Cubs fans are like, no, that dude was part of the heartbeat of this team and in some of the best years of Cubs baseball that we've ever seen. And so I think it's cool that, he's immortalized in the city of Chicago in that way. And I agree, Hank. Like he can't catch a break. And I mean, hey, he's robbing the Rockies blind, and I'm totally okay with it. Good for him. Like, go get your money, big pimp. And baseball contracts are fully guaranteed. He's getting all that cash, and he can ride off into the sunset and move back to Vegas with his family and live under the radar and just be a dude and never have to worry about money. And, good for him, because I think, I don't think any Cubs fan ever said anything bad about him, and you never read anything bad about him. And he was just a quiet guy, and he was a damn good baseball player. And he's linked to one of the greatest memories that Cubs fans will have in this generation. And for that, everybody's always going to love and appreciate Chris Bryant. But I agree, man, it sucks that the dude can't catch a break. Cannot catch a freaking break. Matthew says here in the comments, Bryant needs to retire as a Cub. I would love it. I think him and Riz, I think would be really cool when they are ready to hang up the cleats to, do the one-day contract thing and retire a Cub. And I mean, they'll both be in the Cubs Hall of Fame. That's out in the left field bleachers, and it would be incredible watching those guys come back. I don't think obviously retired numbers are necessarily in the works for either one of them. Maybe Rizzo. I think he's the only one from that World Series team that I can make an argument. Maybe Kyle Hendricks if you really want to get sappy just because of tenure. But I think, those guys are still going to be in the Cubs Hall of Fame no matter what. And that's going to be a cool day at the ballpark for those guys, because they really are. As soon as they retire, they'll never buy a drink or a meal or anything in the city of Chicago. Everybody's going to love and appreciate them until the day those guys leave this earth. So, yeah, man, it'd be cool. It'd be cool to see him retire a Cub, but we're probably still a few years away from that. And, when that time comes, we'll certainly have to see it through. Darren says here, could you imagine a Chris Bryant in his prime playing third for the Cubs right now? Don't get me thinking about what ifs, Darren. I might cry, man. It'd be cool. He's still young enough, right? I mean, he's 31? Certainly still a baseball player's prime. And yeah, man, could you imagine him in this lineup? Like a healthy, even 2/3 of the version of MVP Chris Bryant right now on this team would be incredible. Would absolutely be incredible. Hank asks, would you retire Bryant's number? I would not. Because then I think you also have to retire it for Mark Grace, if we're being honest. I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize how good Mark Grace's numbers were. At least a lot of people that are my age, as people who didn't grow up watching Mark Grace. But when you look at the numbers, I mean, that guy was one of the best pure hitters in baseball for a decade. I unfortunately don't think there's any guys on that World Series team that you retire. Maybe Hendricks just because of tenure. Maybe Rizzo just because he was kind of the heartbeat. He kind of was the second iteration of Mr. Cub. I would love to, I'll call it as a meatball fan. I'll put my meatball hat on real quick. I'd love to see his number retired. I just don't think it's going to happen. And unfortunately, I don't think he's got the longevity to do it either. And Hank follows that up with Lester. I maybe Lester, but even with Lester, then you got to do, in my opinion, then you have to dual retire it for Kerry Wood. And I know that may sound like, well, really, like Kerry Wood's kind of like it was Kerry Wood. You know what I mean? So like, there's so many Cubs legends that don't have their numbers retired. Because if you look at the guys that hang on the flagpole, every single one of those guys was with the team for forever, right? Fergie had 2 stints with the team and was here for a long time and was one of the greatest pitchers of that era. Ernie Banks, again, he's Mr. Cub for a reason. He was, a lifelong Cub. Ron Santo being the same way. Billy Williams being the same way. Maddox, right? I mean, it's tough. It's tough. And it really is one of those things, man. Sonny says here, I did watch Grace's entire career, and he's floored that he never realized his number wasn't retired. No, Mark Grace's number is not retired. The Cubs haven't retired a number in a long time. I don't know. It's hard to solo host and Google stats, but we're gonna do it anyway. When was the last time the Cubs retired a jersey number? Because it's been a hot minute. Yeah, 2009 when they retired 31 for Maddox. It's been a while. And before that, it was Oh, here we go. This is fantastic. Before that, it was Santo in 03. Or sorry, it was Sandberg in 05. Jenkins, they dual retired Fergie and Maddox in 09. And then 05 for Sandberg, 03 for Santo. Banks was in 82. Billy Williams was in 87. And that's it. So like they don't retire numbers. Like that's just not what the Cubs do. And I think that's just part of the allure. Because you look at all those guys that are retired, right? I mean, Billy Williams is a baseball Hall of Famer, National League Rookie of the Year in 61, 6-time All-Star. Sandberg, obviously, the 9 Gold Gloves at second base. He's a Hall of Famer, 10-time All-Star. Ernie Banks, Hall of Famer, 2 MVP awards, 14-time All-Star. Ron Santo, finally a Hall of Famer. It's a freaking shame he wasn't put in while he was still alive. But a 9-time All-Star, over 2,100 games for the Cubs. Like, these guys were up there. Greg Maddux, I mean, led the National League in wins 3 times. Cy Young years, obviously, all of them were with Atlanta. But, I mean, he was a 4-time Cy Young winner. 8-time All-Star to get his number retired. Fergie, a Cy Young, and so many great years. Like, they don't retire numbers, man. They just don't. Like, and I agree with wholeheartedly, Darren. Like, I would argue if anybody, there's an argument for it, Sammy Sosa. Like, to me, that's the only player who isn't already retired that I would say, like, well, yeah, no shit, he should be on the foul pole, on the flagpoles. And the fact that he's not is weird. Yeah, man, it's crazy. Yeah, as Hank says here, Grace with the most hits in the 90s. I mean, like, and he's not even retired, right? So it's like you're gonna retire KB. Like, yeah, he won an MVP and a Rookie of the Year, but it was such a short peak in a short window that I don't know. 541 home runs for Sammy. Yeah, you betcha. I totally agree there. Joe, our old boy Joe. How you doing, buddy? Joe says here goes Cubbies. He follows that up saying they're likely to be going to do something to memorialize the whole team rather than an individual. That I fully agree with. I think what it should be is a statue. I think it should be a statue because I think it'd be really, really cool. And I think it should be the Rizzo Bryant meeting with I know he's tainted in the world of Cubs baseball, but Addison Russell, Javier Baez, like doing the jump behind them. To me, that is the picture that I think of when I think of the 2016 World Series. So even if it's just KB and Riz like hugging it, and celebrating that, I think that would be really cool. But I agree. I think it's going to be something more that's team focused. And he follows that up saying the 2016 team. Yeah, completely agree, Joe. I think that's a good call on that. So it's something to be said, man. It really is. But yeah, wow, I can't believe that was 10 years ago already. It feels like an entire lifetime. You know what I mean? Of everything, not just sports, just everything. Thinking back to 2015. I was a junior in college in 2015, which actually when he debuted, I was finishing up my sophomore year of college when he debuted. Man, that feels like a lifetime ago. I don't know. Really cool memory though. Fun little trip down nostalgia. I didn't think we were going to get as deep into that as we did, but certainly cool. Christopher Cole says your Grace was a beast. He was fantastic, and he was my mom's favorite player. A very fun fact there. 2015 was an awesome year. I completely agree. It was an awesome year to be a Cubs fan. It was the first year of a true excitement, I think, about the ball club in a long time. Really, since I would argue since that 2018. It was the first time that everybody was really excited. All right, we have to look ahead. We have to look ahead at what's to come, and that is 3 with the Arizona Diamondbacks this weekend at Wrigley Field. As we noted a little bit earlier in the show, this is the first series of 3 at home. They have a 2-game set with the Dodgers next week on Tuesday and Wednesday, with an off day on Monday, and then an off day on Thursday before the Philadelphia Phillies and a couple of Cubs legends and Kyle Schwarber and Nicholas Castellanos come to town for another weekend series still at Wrigley Field before they get on the road to end the month of April. So a lot coming, and I believe they're only going to Pittsburgh at the end of the month. I think it's Pittsburgh and then Milwaukee to get things started in May on the road for the Cubbies. So big series coming up this weekend. Big series coming up this weekend with 3 at Wrigley against these Diamondbacks. And I want to go back to the first comment in tonight in our comment section from Jay. He says, "Is the wind blowing out all weekend at Wrigley?" So this is not an ad by any stretch of imagination. But they follow me on X, so a big shout out to them because I do use the app religiously. If you don't have it, Wrigley Wins is the name of the app. It's this little like green icon. You'll see it there. I have it in my little weather app section with everything else. Got old trusty WGN as well in there. And it'll show you the way the winds are blowing out. So tomorrow, Friday, the winds are expected to be blowing out 11 miles per hour to left field with gusts up to 19 miles per hour. So yes, it's going to be warm tomorrow and it's going to be windy as hell and it's going to be blowing out. If you like home runs, tomorrow's a good day for it. Get the ball in the air and hope it flies. That's exactly my word of advice to the Cubs tomorrow. And I'm sure the Diamondbacks will be doing the exact same thing because it's going to be a windy one in a warm day at Wrigley, a 75-degree day. Man, if you're getting out from the ballpark tomorrow, I am so jealous of you. Oh, it's such a good day to be at Wrigley for a Friday 120. But then on Saturday, we're looking at here a far, far different story. When it's all said and done, what is this? Oh, this is at different times. Oh, that's kind of cool. But on Saturday right now, it's showing the forecast. It's only going to be 51 degrees, and they're actually expecting the wind to slightly blow in. Not to a point where I think it's going to kill a ton of baseballs, but it's not going to be whipping out like it is on Friday. And then on Sunday, it's forecasting to be 54 degrees, but an 11 mile per hour wind out of Wrigley. So that would be comparable to what they're kind of expecting for tomorrow. So Sunday we might see a lot of opportunity again for baseballs to leave the ballpark. I think Saturday is going to be the worst hitting day though of the three, based on what the forecast is, because it's supposed to be beautiful on Friday, and then Saturday Sunday is going to be kind of shitty weather, more true Chicago spring weather, unfortunately, with kind of those mid 50s. I'll certainly take it over snow, but yeah, it's going to be kind of gross. So it's a big series coming up. Obviously, if you're the Cubs, you want to take advantage of it. I mean, this team's been hitting for a lot of slug already, so taking advantage of the win could be huge. We know how Wrigley hit last year. It was an unseasonably low year in terms of the wind blowing out. Take it from somebody who lived a mile and a half from Wrigley last year. There was a lot of really beautiful days. I went outside and was like, damn it, the wind's blowing off the lake. I was like, that means it's going to be blowing in when it should be blowing out. We're going to see a lot of wind blowing out this weekend. So hopefully the Cubs take advantage of it. They have a tough pitching matchup, though. Tough pitching matchup for the Cubs alone. It's Colin Ray on Friday. Ben Brown will throw on Saturday. James Taillon will throw on Sunday. But the Cubs have the three-headed beast for the Diamondbacks this weekend. We see Corbin Burns for the first time. Avoided him in that 4-game series down in Arizona to start the year. Not this time. They'll see him Friday afternoon, even though he's been dinged up a little bit, has a over 5 ERA to start the year so far. Zach Gallen throws on Saturday. He has over 4 ERA so far. And then Merrill Kelly will throw on Sunday, and he also has over a 5 ERA. So again, these Diamondback pitchers have been a little beat up early in the season, but they're their 3 best pitchers that the Cubs are going to see this weekend. So tough pitching matchups. The Snakes are a good team. Even though they're 4th in the NL West, they're still one of the best teams in baseball record-wise. It's just how that division's playing right now. Hopefully they can take advantage. Hopefully the offense keeps coming through. Another really good outing from Colin Ray would be super encouraging. Obviously, he just pitched, so turning him around on short rest is going to be an interesting strategy. I think tomorrow's when we see Jordan Wicks throw. I think they're going to see a piggyback situation. Maybe Ray goes like 2 or 3, depending on how many pitches he's allowed to throw. And then Wicks comes out of the pen and throws probably 3 is my guess, because it's been roughly what he's been about throwing down in Iowa. And then they'll go to the bullpen at that point, and then they'll expect Brown to go hopefully 6. I'm sure, obviously Jameson we know can go 6 to 7. So I think that's what they're going to expect out of the starting pitching the rest of the weekend. We will not be back with you on Sunday. It is Easter Sunday, and the guys will be with family and things like that. So rather than trying to squeeze a show in with awful schedules, we're just going to defer. The Cubs are off on Monday. You'll hear from our friends over at the Dingers podcast on Monday. You'll hear from us on Tuesday, and we'll probably do that show as a post game for that first game of the Dodgers series. Tyler will actually be at the ballpark that night as well. So hopefully some Wrigley Field content coming via Mr. Tyler Edmonds on Tuesday night. That's when we'll get back with you, talk about the Arizona series, obviously talk about the first game with the Dodgers. If anything changes, though, be on the lookout with the Cubs on Tap social media pages, specifically on X, at Cubbies on Tap, if you're not already following, in case something does change. Maybe Sunday night there'll be an impromptu show, especially if something big happens, but expect to probably not hear from us on Sunday because of the holiday. But we will see you for our normally scheduled programming. Tuesday, we'll be back. And then Thursday, another off-day show just like this one before the 3-game stretch with the Phillies. So that'll be another fun show as well to talk about kind of the what has happened and what's to come, just like this one was here tonight. One final comment here from Darren. He says, all this nostalgia makes me wish the mid-'80 Cubs would have won a World Series. That team was old school when old school was in session. I agree. I think especially that 84 team, right? Like to me, that's the team that glaringly stands out the most. You could certainly make the argument too with some of those later 80s Cubs teams with Andre Dawson and how good they were. And obviously he won an MVP. And so I mean, I think it would have been nice if any of those teams won it. We wouldn't have been talking about 100 years curse comes 2016. It would have been, a 30 or a 40-year curse, which is a little different. So, but yeah, I mean, again, a rich history of Cubs baseball, despite the lack of championships. And maybe this 2025 team will be a small part of that history. Be cool. but we won't know because we're only 20 games in, 21 games into the season so far. Still a lot of baseball to play. And it starts tomorrow on Friday with a 1:20 start against the Arizona Diamondbacks. As always, encourage everybody to follow our friends over at the Dingers podcast. Again, they will be live on Monday night. At Dinger Cubs on the socials. Be sure to follow us, as I mentioned, at Cubbies on Tap as well. You can follow me. I am at Loose on Tap, as you see right here in my little description. If you're listening on podcast, you can follow all of us. All of our handles are in the podcast descriptions as well. And everybody knows the drill. Follow the boys. We love them. I missed them tonight, but this was healthy for me. I needed this vent session. Trust me. Yesterday was a bit of a sports breakdown for Ron Luce, and I was like, can't do it anymore. This was good. We needed this for the mental sanity. As always, we don't just cover the Cubs here at On Tap Sportsnet. We just celebrated 6 years, as a matter of fact. Joey and Tyler and Nick talked about it a little bit on Tuesday's show. Nick was around in the early days in 2019 2019. That maths. And then left and then came back. Joey and Tyler obviously joined later. As somebody who was a part of this thing since day one, a part of the original group of 5 that were tasked with On Tap Sportsnet and meeting, Tony and those guys well before that, and starting this whole, covering sports and talking about sports thing. Really since 2018 is it where it dates back for me. It's crazy that it's been 6 years. I've been a part of this and done this at a nauseating rate. Obviously, everybody hears my voice on this show at a nauseating rate. It's crazy. It's crazy when you think that a majority of the last decade has been spent doing this. And it's cool. It's that we've done a lot of cool things. We met a lot of great people. The comment section, I mean, you guys are a huge part of that as well. The people we've met at the ballpark, the people we've met at the different stadiums, the people we've met because of this platform, friends of the show now that we get to happily call friends of the show, Cole Wright, Miguel Esparza, Alex Cohen, people that we're hoping to have on as guests here soon. Obviously, Justin Steele, who we wish well in terms of getting healthy. None of that would have been possible if it wasn't for this platform and this brand and being a part of this whole thing. And man, it's been really cool. When you rode the roller coaster the whole 6 years, like I have, it's you have a lot of battle scars and a lot of war stories, and there's a lot of frustrations and a lot of long nights and a lot of long days and a lot of sacrifice, giving up just general things you want to do on a daily basis to bring great content to the people that want to listen to us and and want to read our work over at ontapsportsnet.com. And being a part of that has been really cool. And and another piece of this that's going to come to fruition this year, which I think is going to be awesome, is friend of the program, Mr. Jack McMullen from Just Baseball, and the former play-by-play for the Indianapolis Indians, now your radio play-by-play for the Miami Marlins. We're hopefully going to be able to meet up with him when the Marlins are in town here coming up in May, and get to say hey and chat it up a little bit. And again, none of that happens without the mission that was started on April 15th, 2019, when On Tap Sportsnet LLC was created and this brand was launched. And we're still here 6 years later. A lot of organizations and websites and fan blogs and things like that don't last this long. And we've built a hell of a network, and there's a lot of great people that are a part of it. Sonny is one of those people as well over on our Bears show. And Joe Maris was a part of that and a part of the history of what has been On Tap Sportsnet. And appreciate you, Sonny, and what you've done as well. And thank you, Hank, and all you guys here in the comment section. I mean, you guys are just as much of a part of this thing as we are, for riding along with us, because you guys ride the roller coaster with us, especially in the sport like baseball, where it's long and we get there. But it's pretty cool, man. So, and if you're not already following along, This thing ain't going anywhere anytime soon. At OnTapSportsNet, OnTapSportsNet.com. You know the drill. Like, subscribe on the YouTube, and there'll be plenty more to come. And again, if we don't see you Sunday, we'll certainly see you Tuesday. To those who celebrate, understanding not everybody does, we wish you a happy Easter this weekend. If you don't celebrate, enjoy your weekend. I hope it's a beautiful one. If you do, enjoy your time with family and friends and those that you get together with on the holiday. Always wish everybody be safe. That's incredibly important as well. And if you maybe, get sick of the Cubs on tap only, you can check out all of our other great work. We mentioned Sonny does a lot with us with Bears. We got Blackhawks, we got Bulls, even though those 2 seasons just ended as well. Plenty of off-season content coming up over there. And of course, Cubs fans, you got friends that like the Southsiders, and so do we. You can send them over to our friends at Sox on Tap. Darren says here, you guys are more than podcasters, like buddies we meet up with, talk ball. 100%. And that's what makes this a lot of fun. And that's the part of this that I truly enjoy the most. You'll hear me bitch and moan about writing a news article, for example, like Jordan Wicks getting called up. But this is the part that I genuinely enjoy, and you guys make this a lot of fun too, because of the interaction, even on a solo show like this. It's not me just talking to myself. It's talking to the people that are listening along and bouncing, using your ideas that you're bouncing off of me in the chat to bring you guys something great. I think Jay sums this up beautifully as a way for us to get out of here. He says FTC. He says we're going to go with FDB for the Diamondbacks this weekend. And as always, folks, let's go Cubbies.